What is going on? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're living blessed. As you can see, I had to get myself together because your boy was looking kind of rough. But hey, welcome to the video. So recently I turned 27, and lately I've just been doing a lot of reflection just on my life and just thinking about the wisdom and the knowledge and just the things that the Lord has shown me throughout the course of my life. And in this video, I just want to share a couple of things that the Lord has taught me during my early 20s. And my hope is that you can gain some wisdom and some knowledge and some insight just through some of the things that the Lord has shown me. Now, the first thing that the Lord has shown me during my early 20s is to always seek God's counsel first. Proverbs 19:21 says, "Many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand." And the Lord has really shown me that anytime I'm making a decision, I need to make sure that I'm going to Him first to make sure that my plans and my desires align with whatever His will is for my life. So I ended up going to college to pursue electrical engineering. And after my first year, I basically was doubting that decision. It became such a question for me on whether or not I should stick with this major that at the beginning of my sophomore year, I just made the decision that I was gonna change my major and just switch to something else. My reasonings was like, this is gonna be hard, after your freshman year, you end up getting into your major classes for your sophomore year on. And so I was really doubting if I was wanting to do it, if it was gonna be too hard, and just all these doubts was just flooding my mind with this decision to pursue electrical engineering. And I remember I called a bunch of people who I knew just to seek counsel and wisdom from them and telling them, hey, I'm thinking about changing my major. What should I do? And I ended up talking to a few people about it and didn't get any clarity whatsoever. Everybody was just like, we're gonna support you no matter what you do. If you change your major, we support you, we love you. If you stick with your major, we support you, we love you. And I'm just like, that's not what I need. Give me an answer, yes or no. And so didn't get a yes or no answer from anybody I talked to. And so I'm just like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna change my major because I don't think this is for me. It's too hard. I can't do it. So I go up to the dean's office, try to change my major, and he ends up wanting to talk to me first before I change my major. So I end up sitting down, talking to him, and he basically just starts asking me questions like, why do you want to change your major? And I just explained to him, some of those things of, it's too hard, I'm not sure if it's for me. At the time too, I was really involved at church doing youth ministry type stuff. And so there was a lot of people who was pushing something like becoming a pastor or something into, stepping into that type of ministry. And so I was just, doubting this decision. And so I was explaining these things to him, and he was just, listening to what I was saying. And he was like, okay, cool. And something else too that I was telling him is just the reason why I got into electrical engineering in the first place was just because I was always good at math and science. So in school, did really well in those courses. And also too, we would take these career tests on the computer, and it would spit out your top 5 majors based on the things that you like and you're interested in. And so engineering was always at the top of that list. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess because I'm good at math and science, because engineering is always on the top of what, these tests say I should do, I'm gonna pursue engineering. I'm explaining these things to him, and he hits me with this question, and he's like, so you've kind of explained that a lot of the reasons why you pursued electrical engineering was because of these external things, whether it be from tests or school or people telling me I was good at math and science or whatever. And he asked me this question that truly changed just my perspective on decisions, even up to this day. And the question that he asked me was, have you went to God with this decision? Have you asked God, what should you do? Then I looked at him and I'm just like, I never actually asked God. And so he challenged me that day. And this was like the day before the deadline to change your major. So if you didn't change it the next day, then you were locked in for the whole semester. You couldn't change your classes or anything like that. So this is like very last minute. If I don't do it the next day, then I'm locked in for electrical engineering for the whole semester. But he challenged me. He was like, I know you came in here to change your major today, but before you do so, promise me you'll do one thing first. Promise me you'll leave here and you'll find a place tonight to go to the Lord and to ask him what you should do. And I was just like, dang, man, nobody's ever told me to do that. Nobody's ever suggested to, make sure you ask the Lord. And so I ended up doing that. I went to my dorm room that night and I just prayed for, 30, 45 minutes and just sat with the Lord and just asked him, like, Lord, what should I do? And in that moment, he just started revealing the reasons why he actually gave me the passion and desire for electrical engineering. Because growing up, I was always hands-on. I was always intrigued when it comes to like how stuff worked. I loved taking electronics apart and fixing phone screens in high school and taking apart my PS2 or PS3 when it broke and just all sorts of stuff like that. And it was in that moment when I actually sat and asked the Lord, what should I do? That he just started revealing and encouraging me with sticking with electrical engineering. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up sticking with it and ended up graduating. And it was because of that pivotal moment of that dean asking me, have I asked the Lord? Have I went to him with this decision? And this is literally probably the most important thing that I've learned in my early 20s was to always seek God first before you make any decision. Like that verse says, many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. So anytime you're making a decision, make sure you go to him, because if your plans don't align with his plans, it's probably not going to work out. Another passage I want to read is from Psalm 33, verses 10 and 11. It says this, the Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He frustrates the plans of the peoples. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. So again, anytime you're making a decision, make sure you seek his counsel, for his counsel stands forever. Another thing that I've learned in my early 20s is that when God calls you to move, move. So as I was getting ready to graduate from college, again, sticking with my major, sticking with electrical engineering, during my last semester, the Lord was telling me that I needed to move, that I needed to leave Kentucky. And basically the reason why was because I was too comfortable with where I was at. I had family there, I had friends there, I had community there, I had lived there all my life, but the Lord was basically just telling me like, yo, there's something more that I have for you. I want you to leave the nest. I want you to spread your wings. I want you to fly. Like there's more that I have for you that's not in Kentucky. When I heard this from the Lord, I was just like, all right, Lord, so you don't want me to stay here in Kentucky. That's fine. Like I'm tired of Kentucky anyway, been here all my life. All right, let's do it. So I ended up applying for jobs pretty much anywhere. Like I would just apply for jobs in like California, Florida, New York, Ohio, Tennessee, Indiana, you name it. Had a lot of interviews and nothing came out of it. But I'm just like, yo, wherever you want to go, Lord, send me. Like I'm willing to go anywhere. But nothing was coming out of these opportunities. A month before graduation, again, still didn't have anything lined up yet. You know, everybody's asking you, what are your plans after you graduate? I don't know yet. I'm still trying to find out. So end up getting the opportunity to come to Michigan. Well, I had an interview with a company in Michigan. And out of all the places that I was applying to, this was the only place that actually reached out to me first. So, and I think I had like posted my resume online on like Indeed.com or something like that. They found my resume, reached out to me. Hey, we like to set up an interview, all that stuff. Then like a month later, again, it's like 2 days before graduation, they end up offering me a job to go to Battle Creek, Michigan. Never heard of Battle Creek, Michigan, never even thought of even moving to Michigan. But I'm like, all right, maybe this is where the Lord wants me to go. So I asked them for 2 days to think about it, to pray about it. Again, just thinking back to the previous point that I learned is just to seek God's counsel first. I just wanted to make sure that I brought that to the Lord in prayer before I made this decision, before I accepted this job. Graduation day comes and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do it. Accepted the job, moved to Michigan in, January of 2018. 2 years later, God calls me to move again. God calls me to move from Battle Creek, Michigan, back down to Kentucky. And I didn't want to do it. I was trying to come up with all sorts of excuses at this point. I had built community there and had friends there. I was doing ministry there, all these beautiful things. But again, the Lord was just calling me to move. So again, I just wanted to be obedient to that. I'm like, all right, Lord, I'll move. And he called me to do it in March of 2020. As many of you know, this was when COVID came, and it was literally a week before that he called me to move there. And looking back now, like I get to be able to be on this side of those decisions and see why he had me make these moves. When I moved to Battle Creek, I was able to just grow in just the gift of evangelism. I was part of a ministry called Hood Church. Shout out to Brother Raul and just the ministry that you're doing, bro. And I was able to, just minister to people out in the streets. I was doing so many things. I was teaching Sunday school class, and the Lord was just doing a mighty work there in Battle Creek. And then when I moved to Kentucky, was able to be with my dad during COVID. He's older and like he's in his 80s, so I was able to be there with him during COVID. And then a year later, after I had moved from Battle Creek back to Kentucky, the Lord called me back to Michigan. So again, when God calls you to move. Long story short, the Lord was calling me to move back to Michigan because that's where my wife was. So at this point, I was in a long distance courtship for 3 months, and the Lord just called me to move and got engaged, got married. So this is just something that I've learned just in my early 20s, early on, just up to this point in my life, is that when God calls you to move. And you may not see the reasons why at the time, but that's where trust comes in. That's where we gotta put our faith in him and just truly believe that God is gonna equip us with what we need, that God is gonna provide us with just every single thing, so we don't need to worry. Something else too is we can come up with so many excuses when God calls us to do things or when God calls us to move. There's a story in the Bible of a guy named Jonah, and the Lord had called him to go to a city called Nineveh to warn them against the evil that they were doing and to just bring the Lord's judgment upon them. And Jonah just comes up with excuses. He doesn't want to do it. He tries to go the other way, but still the Lord ends up bringing him there to Nineveh. And just all throughout the Bible, there's a story of a guy named Abraham who God called to lead. There's a guy called Moses who the Lord just called to lead his people out of slavery, out of Egypt into his promised land. And just all throughout the Bible, we just see how God uses people, how he calls us to move from one place to another. So that's something I just wanted to encourage you with, is that when God calls you to move. Just got that good workout in. I'm all about growing physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Not just one of those, not just two of those, but all three of those. And speaking of three, the third thing that I've learned in my early 20s is to never get too comfortable. So Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6 say, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall make your path straight." So when I think about my early 20s, and when I think about just this point of not being too comfortable, this really boils down to trusting God. And so when I think about these different moves that I made, moving from Kentucky to Battle Creek, moving back from Battle Creek back to Kentucky, and just all these different things and all these different decisions, if I was comfortable, I wouldn't have trusted in the Lord to guide my steps and to lead me. And because of that, I would have missed out on just so much more that the Lord wanted to bless me with through those different experiences of when I was in Battle Creek and coming back and just all these different things. And when you think about too of the Great Commission, which is basically where God just calls all of us to, as believers, to share the good news of the gospel. His word says, go, make disciples of all nations. And this idea of go requires us to literally get up where we are, out of our seats, out of our chairs, and to go. So I want to encourage you to not get too comfortable, because God is always working. He's always moving. In John 15, it talks about how we need to abide in him. And sometimes, God just wants to prune us and just work in us. And so this process is a process that may not be comfortable. Hebrews talks about, for a moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. But that is it for this one. If you made it to the very end, I appreciate you. Reflection question: what is something that the Lord has taught you recently? Let me know down in the comments below. If you made it to the very end, hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. And my prayer for you is that you seek, know, and live biblical truth in every single thing that you do. It's your boy ScottEbruh, and until next time, grace, peace.